Welcome to Structuring a Heist. We're going to look at the beats and then we're going to talk about the secret aspects of a heist. I want to start by saying that heists are complicated. This is a story in which you have a team of people, each of which has a different role and an individual part to play, and they're trying to accomplish something that they can only do by working together. And the story is moved by our interest in their interaction and how they achieve the goal. So you have to balance this ensemble cast and simultaneously the elements of a thriller and the need to deliver satisfying twists while also keeping the story moving forward. Heist is a thriller coupled with an ensemble story. It is also a con, and the people that you're conning are the audience. So the thriller part gives you the beats of how are they going to pull this off? What's going to go wrong? And the ensemble gives you the characters caring for each other and pushing themselves to the limits of their ability. But part of the con is making the audience think that they know how it's going to go and then faking them out. And part of the reason people enjoy heists is because of those twists. Conning the audience on a heist is part of your job. The basic beats. You start with the catalyst, the reason to commit the heist. Then you begin scouting the territory. You gather the team, practice and prep for the heist. Then the team is committed to the heist. They're forced to alter their plans. The plan comes together. Something bigger goes wrong. And then there's some sort of ticking clock chase sequence. There's an apparent total loss, and then actual win, true plan revealed. Occasionally, one of these is in a different place. Sometimes things are compressed, especially if you're looking at a heist that is very short form. But generally speaking, you see all of these beats in pretty much every heist that you're going to look at. So let's talk about those individually. The catalyst. The catalyst is the disruption of the status quo. In basic form, it really is not much different from establishing normal in any other kind of storytelling. If your heist is part of a larger story, then the events leading up to this point serve the purpose of establishing normal. What's key here is that something happens that causes your character to decide that they need to conduct a heist. As I said, this is usually an event of some sort, which represents a disruption of the status quo. Sometimes that is they've gotten out of jail. Sometimes that is a death. Sometimes it is a desire for revenge. There's a number of different things, but at its heart, a heist takes you into a place and then back out again as a means of establishing a new status quo. The event that serves as the trigger is usually, in a heist, a minor thread that you keep alive to give a sense of urgency, but it's not where the immediate efforts go. For instance, if someone's home is being foreclosed on, that's an event. But if your character isn't spending time at the bank arguing with loan officers and they're planning to rob things, that's a heist, right? So most of their effort is going to be going into that milieu, into the in and back out again, into the navigating, not just establishing a new status quo. After that catalyst, we begin scouting the territory. In almost every heist, the protagonist goes to look at the place that they're trying to break into. Sometimes this is done remotely with a drone, sometimes it is in person. This is, in many ways, a mark of the first threshold that the protagonist must cross. There's usually some element of risk that represents the larger risk that they're going to be facing. A lot of times, this is a way of establishing promises. More importantly, it shows the audience the geography of the landscape so that when you are in the heist proper, things can happen rapidly because the audience knows where everything is. The other thing that this does is that for the audience, you are making them feel like they are part of the team. They are not part of the team, but you make them feel like they are because they become invested in this scouting operation. Gathering of the team. So heist stories are inherently ensemble stories. Can you have a solo character enter a place, steal something, and then leave? Yes. That's often what James Bond is doing. But the joy of a true heist is the interplay of the character relationships. Without it, it's just a thriller. So at this point, when you begin to gather the team, you're entering character land. But this is the trick. In a heist, the ensemble is the character. So in a character story, the character is unhappy with some aspect of self. And by the end, they come to a resolution about themselves. In an ensemble piece, each character in the heist represents not only a skill set, but also an aspect of self. The more characters you have, the more highly specialized their skills have to be to keep them from overlapping. Give everyone a weakness so that they all need each other. They all fill in a gap that the other ones have. An ensemble cast has to be interdependent in order for it to really be an ensemble. In addition to representing the skill set, each character also represents an aspect of self. The aspects of self: ability, role, relationship, and status. Each of these are how we define ourselves. I'm going to talk about it as an individual first, and then I'll talk about how that works with a group. I define myself by what I can do and what I can't do, my abilities, my inabilities. Role is basically driven by tasks, the specific things that fill your day, the activities, the things you are responsible for. Relationship is about loyalties, who I am loyal to, who I have love, affection, some form of loyalty for. And then status is about power. It's where I stand in a hierarchy. So when you're looking at an ensemble, all of the people in the ensemble can be equally committed to the idea of the group, but for different reasons. Their definition of self, of the ensemble, differs slightly. They are representing that conflict. One of them could be like, you know what? We have the ability to crack into any safe we want to. What defines us is our ability to do this. And someone else is like, no. What defines us is that we're thieves. That's what we do. We steal things. And the person who's like, it's about ability is like, no, but we can take these skills and we can do other things with them and we'll still be us. The other one's like, no, if we aren't stealing things, then it's not us. It doesn't matter what we can do. And then someone else is like, hey, everyone, it's not about what we can do. It's not about the fact that we're thieves. We're a family. That's what it's about. And then the last one is like, no, when we do these things together, we get money and that allows us to do anything we want to do. And that's why we work together, because of the power, the status. So they can all be committed, but those different aspects of self can cause them to have internal conflict because they each have a different motivation for being there. There is usually a main character. This is usually the person who had the idea for the heist, the planner. This is usually the person that the audience connects with and is our viewpoint character for understanding and rooting for the characters. In many ways, you're treating them just the way you would treat any other character, any other protagonist. The difference is that they are sharing the protagging with the other characters. For a true ensemble, the other characters need to carry comparable emotional weight and have their own individual arcs, in addition to the large arc for the group. So when I said treat the ensemble as a character, that also means giving the ensemble a character arc. The challenge is that when your heist team gets too big, it stops being an ensemble because the other characters begin to become background characters. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that everyone has to have a POV. The other arcs might happen off stage, but they do need to happen and intersect the story in some way. As part of the con, part of what you're doing during this assembling of the team, where you bring in characters one at a time, is that you're giving the audience time to see each of the thieves as people so that your mark, which is your audience, cares about them and wants them to succeed. And part of the way you do that is by demonstrating during the gathering of the team not only what their strength is, but also showing us one of their weaknesses. Because one of the things that we unfortunately like is people who are at risk of failing. You can have a two-person heist and do an ensemble of two. With that, what you want to do is you want to give each of them kind of a primary expertise plus an area of competence that they can do, but isn't something that they excel at. So the thing that happens here is that when you have a character who has multiple hats, you can demonstrate how skilled this person really is in this one area, and then have them encounter things that they're not so good at, which allows you to ramp up the drama significantly. The fewer the characters, the more important the relationship between those characters is going to be to the whole story. The more characters there are, the less important that relationship is going to be, and the more it's going to be about the mechanics of pulling off the heist itself. So it depends a lot on where you want to put that weight. The practice phase. This serves three basic functions. One is competence porn. In other words, we learn about the characters while they are doing things that they are good at. And the viewer takes pleasure from watching people be good at something. The next thing is that it shows part of the plan. In order for us to know that later that things have gone wrong, we have to know what they're planning. But we're also conning the audience, and we're tricking them into thinking that they know how things are going to go down by showing them the plan. And we don't show them all of the plan. Functionally, this is often like a training montage. You'll have a POV character that moves from station to station where each member of the team is working on something that they will need during the heist. It gives the viewer the illusion that they are seeing the whole thing, but really you're just showing them the pieces that they need in order to think that they know what's going to happen. It increases the stakes because as we're going through and we're checking in on people during this thing, we're introduced to a list of things that can go wrong. You are setting the reader up to think that they know how it's going to go. You're going to set up something in that practice and prep, which is a thing that they say, oh no, if we do this might go wrong. And one of those things in that sequence is the bigger thing that goes wrong that leads to the apparent total loss, the thing that looks like it was a mistake, but was actually something that they had planned for. And so that's the trick that you're pulling on the reader. So now we are committed to the heist. This is another threshold crossing. This is our point of no return. The stakes raise again because at this point, they can no longer just walk away from it. This is usually a very fast beat. It's a beat that you have to hit, but you don't need to linger in it. Next, they are forced to alter the plan. Sometimes this beat comes before the arrival at the actual location, but it is always after the team has committed, where they cannot back out of it. And when something goes wrong, they have to alter the plan. Once we are inside the heist and we've been forced to alter the plan, then we have this moment when the plan comes together, where all of the groundwork that the team has laid pays off and everything is going like clockwork. This is also where all of the groundwork that you laid during the scouting and practice sequence comes in handy, because you can shorthand and focus on the new variable, which is the mark or the bad guy. Because as the plan is coming together, generally speaking, this is where they are intersecting with variables that are outside of their control. Usually, there is a person, the mark, the bad guy, that is the avatar of what can go wrong. So as the plan is coming together, then this bigger thing goes wrong. And here's the thing. Remember I said we were conning the audience? This bigger thing that goes wrong is secretly part of the altered plan. When they had to make that change, something goes wrong, and they've had to alter the plan, they create this other hidden plan. This is a very important element of the modern heist, which is that there is a secret plan, because part of what the audience enjoys is that twist. But with this secret plan, when the bigger thing goes wrong, to the audience, it must look like the plan is in serious jeopardy. Only later do we find out that it is all part of the master plan, the ticking clock. During this scene, everyone is on top of their game. And yet we also still have a giant will they get away with it. What's happening here is everyone is reacting to the thing that has gone wrong, and they are using their special skill set to the edge of their abilities in order to solve whatever that bigger thing that goes wrong is. So if someone is a gymnast, this is the moment when it's like, oh, I was only supposed to have to jump across one laser beam, but because someone screwed up, now I have to jump through 3 laser beams and a flying drone. Sometimes it's the final few seconds of hauling the goods out. Sometimes it's cracking a safe while the villain is walking up the stairs. Very often it's a car chase. Occasionally it's a gondola chase. But in this, everyone is on the top of their game, and that includes the bad guys. Like, everyone is doing it to the best of their abilities, and there is no downtime, which is why you have to have laid all of the other pieces in place, because when we get into the ticking clock chase sequence, it is just action straight through, and there's very little time for character reflection, which also plays in your favor, because when things are moving so fast and you don't have time for the character reflection, that also means that the audience will not notice that you are skipping things, that you are hiding from them. You do have to be careful to not lie to the audience, but to just control what your viewpoint character is focusing on. So if they are focusing very hard on, I have to vault through this window, then they are not thinking about the fact that vaulting through the window is part of the plan all along. It's still right at the edge of their ability, so they have to do it right. But by focusing on the mechanics of that scene, of the ticking clock chase scene, you can distract from the internal thoughts, the apparent total loss. So in most modern heist, there's a moment in which it looks like the team has failed. So this is why I talk about modern heists. Interestingly, this moment stems from the early heist films, which were required to have the theft fail because the film codes at the time said that criminals could not be rewarded on screen. So you would have this amazing heist that gets all the way up to the end, and then they would get caught or lose the loot in some other way. That survives in this moment in which it looks like the people trying to stop them have succeeded. As an example of a difference between an early heist and a modern heist, the Italian Job, the original Italian Job, they pull off this amazing heist with one of the most ridiculous chase sequences that you will ever see. And the film ends with the bus teetering on the edge of this precipice and them all about to just go down with the gold, and all of them die and lose everything. That is where the film ends. When you watch the Italian Job now, the remake, they get away with it completely. A genre beat that is now encoded into a heist is the moment of apparent total loss. The true plan is revealed! Whatever this total loss is, our clever thieves have planned for it. The bigger thing that went wrong and the apparent total loss were all part of their way of making sure that they got away with it completely by allowing the mark to think that they failed. Here is where you let the audience know that you conned them, because the heist is effectively a magic trick. And this is the moment where you let the audience in on the secret so that they can see all of the twists, and in hindsight, they understand what has happened. Often this is essentially a shawarma scene where our protagonists are sitting around enjoying the fruits of their labor. They're divvying up the loot in some way. There's usually the person who thinks that everything failed. Now here is where they let them in. That person is a stand-in for the audience. But it is the happily ever after moment, that true plan revealed. Look at these beats again. Catalyst, scouting the territory, gathering the team, practice prep, committed to the heist, forced to alter the plan, plans comes together, bigger thing goes wrong, ticking clock, apparent total loss, actual win. These are like 11 beats. So how do you handle that with pacing? Essentially, beat 1 and 11 are kind of grace notes. You get, maybe a chapter of that in like a full novel thing. In these other pieces, it's going to depend on the size of your ensemble. The scouting the territory and the gathering the team, both of those are things that you can spend some time with if you want to. The scouting the territory can be fairly fast. But the gathering the team, you actually want to spend some time there because it's part of laying the groundwork. The practice and the prep, again, you kind of want to spend some time there. One of the keys is you want to be giving additional conflicts while those things are happening. But once we get to the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the actual heist itself, that moves really fast. I will also say that you have additional tri-fail cycles that are going on. These are the big kind of tent post tri-fails that you need to have in addition to that. Short form. Frequently, you combine them. In short form, you have a much smaller team. So you probably only have 2 people on your team, maybe 3. So the gathering the team doesn't take very long. You can often have scouting the territory be something that happens off stage, so that you're just referring to a map as part of the practice and prep for the heist. Usually the practice prep for heist is super condensed and goes right into the committed to the heist, and then you cut and go directly into, and now we are into the thing.